Notice how our Lord's townspeople, they ask or they question, where did this man get this wisdom and these deeds of power? In other words, when our Lord begins his public ministry, he starts manifesting his tremendous wisdom, his tremendous knowledge, as well as the performance of miracles, so deeds of power. And prior to that, he hadn't done it. So for 30 years, he lived a hidden life, except for that one occasion where he was 12 years old and stayed behind in the temple. And on that occasion, he did manifest some of his wisdom by asking various questions from the Jewish leaders there. And basically, he was trying to instruct them even at that time. But for the most part, for his hidden life, he did not manifest any of his wisdom. Now, why did he wait all this time? Now, one of the reasons was that in the Jewish tradition, a young male becomes an adult at the age of 12. They have this ceremony, but they only become fully mature and capable of teaching others at the age of 30. So that was part of the reason. But even then, our Lord could have manifested some of his wisdom. He could have, shown his intelligence, even though he could not have been a teacher or a rabbi. Well, he could have manifested some of his wisdom, but he didn't do that. He just kept quiet. He lived a very simple, very ordinary life. He worked as a carpenter. At some point, St. Joseph passes away, so he's responsible for taking care of Mary. And I'm sure he was very prayerful. He attended synagogue like everyone else, but he didn't manifest his wisdom. He didn't want to draw attention to himself. So where did this man get all this wisdom? Well, he had it from all eternity, and he always has it. But he just chose that occasion to manifest it. And when we consider this verse, where did this man get this wisdom and these deeds of power, we can apply this also to the lives of the saints. Today we celebrate the feast of St. John Marie Vianney, patron saint of parish priests, an extremely great saint, somebody who was responsible for the conversion of many, many people. And if you know the story of St. John Marie Vianney, it's really quite incredible, quite miraculous in many ways. So he received very little education growing up. It was at the age of 18 that he started studying in the seminary for the priesthood. And he was dismissed because of his lack of knowledge, his lack of ability, especially in the area of Latin. But one of his former parish priests decided to take him under his wing and to instruct him privately, and so eventually he was able to be ordained as a priest. He was ordained at the age of 29. So he started when he was 18, ordained at the age of 29. There were some things in between where he had to go off to war and things like that. But he had a very hard time with his studies. And even after he was ordained, it took a few months before they allowed him to hear confessions, because they said, well, he's just not capable. He just doesn't have the intelligence, the capability of hearing confessions. And if you know anything of St. John Marie Vianney, he's especially noted for his hearing of confessions. So he would spend many hours every single day hearing confessions. So basically he slept like 3 to 4 hours a night, and he would start hearing confessions at 1 a.m. At 7 a.m. he would celebrate Mass and have something to eat afterwards. And then in the evening, he would celebrate Vespers, go back to hearing confessions, and then just sleep for 3 or 4 hours, and it would repeat every single day. And he lived on very little. He hardly ate anything, so he fasted a lot. And he did all these things out of love for the people. And one of the things that was noteworthy about St. John Marie Vianney is his humility. He did not trust in himself. He did not trust in his own abilities to lead the parish or to hear confessions or anything like that. So, as I mentioned, he had a hard time with his studies. And even when he was first ordained as a priest and he wanted to preach his very first homily, he had practiced a lot and prepared a lot. And then when it came time for him to speak, he couldn't say a word. He just went blank. So these humiliations that he experienced, but his difficulty, right, his intellectual difficulties, and yet despite this, he was extremely prudent in the advice that he gave in the confessional. He was able to read hearts. He was able to predict the future. He was able to do all kinds of great things, even miraculous things. But bishops and religious, all kinds of people started coming to him for confession. They were people lining up for, sometimes it would take a week before somebody was able to get in to see him because the lineup was so large, wanting to see him, wanting to hear his wisdom and perhaps to receive the advice that they were so desperately in need of. And it just goes to show how when we trust in God, when we humble ourselves and trust in God and not in our own intellect, not in our own abilities, but trust completely in God, that the wisdom of God will make itself present within us. Recently, I heard a talk by Father Ripperger. He's an official exorcist, and he was talking about the fact that as human beings, we are extremely stupid. And some people are not willing to acknowledge that. But most of us, at some point, we kind of put our foot in the mouth. We kind of say foolish things or do stupid things. We're extremely stupid. It's the grace of God that helps us. And if it wasn't for the grace of God, he points out that all of us are capable of committing the most horrendous sin conceivable. We shouldn't think that we're beyond that we're somehow exceptional, that we're so good. We're not. And this is our humility. In other words, if we are truly humble, we acknowledge these truths. But we're stupid. We don't know many things. We often say things that we shouldn't and do things that we shouldn't. It's part of our fallen human nature. So it's a reminder to us, trust in God. Don't trust in yourself. Trust in God and entrust everything to God. And seek God's wisdom, seek God's guidance in your life, no matter what you are doing. And when we do this, when we put God first, then we too will manifest the wisdom of God, as did St. John Marie Vianney and so many other saints. So let us ask St. John Marie Vianney to intercede for us, but also to intercede on behalf of priests. As I mentioned, he's the patron saint of parish priests. As you know, we need good priests. We need priests who are willing to speak the truth, especially in regards to moral issues, to point out that certain things are sinful and wrong. And St. John Marie Vianney did this. He told people, you shouldn't be working on Sundays, you shouldn't be dancing, and so many other things. And people believed him because of his sanctity. So he tried to lead people to God, and he was extremely successful because he trusted in God. Let us do the same, and let us ask him to intercede on our behalf and on behalf of priests. Just a reminder that this evening we will have the all-night vigil of adoration. It is First Friday, so also a reminder to try to receive Holy Communion with the intention of making reparation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus.